This is the Louie T Network.
In the lab room. In the lab.
See, first come the preseason, and I don't take a day off. And then my team was 6-10, and we ain't smell the playoffs. Yeah, I seen the Super Bowl, but I heard they just play balls. A lot of teams had injuries. Sam Bradford had to take off. Go hard in the offseason, but you don't know the half. Before you know, we gon' look up, and we ready for the draft. They dressed up in that suit tie, and I don't know how to act. They waiting, so patient, so they can put on that hat. Who else could it be? But your man Luke. Okay, so when she asks you where you was at, you tell her you in the lab room. Who else could it be? Who? But your man Luke. Okay, so when she asks where you was at, you can tell her you was in the lab room. Yeah.
In the lab room.
You think they ready for it? No, I don't think they ready for it. Go ahead, get it to them anyway. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome, you are dialed in to the 18th installment of the In the Lab Room podcast. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on the pod today. It's been a long time between pods. From episodes 17 to 18, it's been quite some time, and I do apologize for that. I sincerely do. But a lot's been going on, as you could imagine. We're talking Super Bowl, end of the season. You transition from there to draft talk and the combine, and that's upon us now. And what I'm going to do with this podcast over the next 2 months or so is just dedicated strictly to the draft. That's all we're going to talk about 24/7 here on the In the Lab Room podcast. And I've got a series lined up for you on this podcast. It's going to be called the 7-on-7 Drill. And what that basically is going to be is, you know how I am. If you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, thank you first and foremost. If you haven't, let me introduce you to what I love to do when I make lists. I love to make lists here on these different podcasts, and what I do is I always start my list at 7. All my lists, if you know, 7 is a beautiful number, in case you didn't know, one of the best numbers in the entire number scale. And 7 is what I like to make my list. My list is comprised of 7. They're usually comprised of 7 different entities, no matter what I'm talking about. And so we're going to list different categories, draft-related topics here on this podcast. We're going to talk about best receivers, best tackles, best quarterbacks, the 7 best in every single category. We're going to talk about different categories, different things. So that's what the 7-on-7 drill is going to be all about. And you're going to get one of those, at least one of those, in every single podcast from here until the draft. So stay tuned for that. But let me tell you something. And this has absolutely nothing to do with nothing. I just got to get this off my chest. For those of you out there who go out, you have a good time, make sure you party responsibly, okay? I just had the absolute worst hangover I've ever had in my life. And I'm not a guy that usually goes overboard with anything. That includes drinking. I usually know my limits, and I usually do a really good job of eating before I have anything to drink. I made the catastrophic mistake of not eating enough before having some drinks. And maybe I had a little bit more than a few drinks. But I'll tell you this much. The hangover I just had to be one of the worst hangovers. And you may have had some bad ones in your time. So I can't really speak to how bad and where it rates on the scale of worst hangovers ever. But I'm going to tell you right now, I had to go to the damn emergency room. And I've never been so dehydrated in my life. I'm talking about I'm shivering, I'm shaking, I'm tingling. I can't keep anything down. It was the absolute worst. I had a great time the night before, but it was not worth it the next day. So I'm just warning you out there, and I'm asking you, please don't do what I did. Okay? Let me save you some of the heartache. And literally, I mean heartache. My heart was hurting from throwing up. Okay? Let me save you the pain. It did not feel good the next morning. Okay? I didn't even have any headaches. It was just my body went into total rejection mode and said, nothing that goes in your mouth is staying in your body the entire day. I had to go to the emergency room. They had to give me fluids. I had to get an injection to stop me from vomiting. It was the worst. Save yourself a day of your life and don't overdo it the night before. Take it from me, Louie T. It's not a good feeling at all. That being said, let's jump into me dropping a gem on your melon. You know how this goes. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man Louie T double E. We're going to call this the draft rumor mill. And I'm going to just discuss a couple of topics, knock them out, and then we're going to start jumping into the 7-on-7. Laquon Treadwell. Let's talk about Mr. Treadwell. A lot of people's number one wide receiver in this 2016 NFL draft class. For good reason. He's a big target. He blocks, catches the football, will go up, make some plays. We all know the story there. But the big controversy with Laquon Treadwell this week, as we head into the combine, is him not wanting to run at the combine. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big of a deal. Guys don't run all the time, okay? But the problem I have with Laquon Treadwell not running is the simple fact that he's been training with one facility for a while, didn't like his results, and now he's going to a different facility to train, and he thinks that this is going to help him do what? Exactly. Now, a wise man once told me, a long time ago, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. Seems like great logic to me. Now, if you're, and let's just go with a hypothetical here. If you're Laquon Treadwell, right, and you show up at the combine and run a 4.55, is anyone going to think any less of Laquon Treadwell because he ran a 4.55? I mean, can't we look at the tape and tell that he's right around a 4.55, a 4.57, a 4.53, somewhere in that general vicinity? If he comes out and he runs a sub 4.540, I think everyone will be surprised. No one looks at his tape and says, hey, he should run a 4.48. So if you were to show up at the combine, if you're Laquon Treadwell, and run a 4.55, I'm not going to think any less of you. And a team that was in love with you before the combine, probably not going to think any less of you either. Now, my question is, what do you stand to gain by going and training and not running at the combine and just waiting until your pro day? What do you really gain? Or how much time are you really shaving off of your 40? Because again, as a wise man once told me, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. So if you're going to run and you've been consistently running, let's say a 4.55, if you go to these camps and you're able to shave off 0.2 of a second and you show up at your pro day and you run a 4.53, what the hell did you just really do? I mean, seriously. Now, the only way I think that it's worth it and to really make a big deal out of running your 40 because you don't think you're going to have the time that you want, Because, look, at the end of the day, either you're fast or you're not fast, okay? The only way that this makes sense to me at all is if you've been consistently running a 4.5 flat or a 4.51 and you think you can get it under a sub 4.540. If you can get it to a 4.49 or a 4.48, that changes things. Because then we can say, hey, he's a 4.4 athlete. Now, we won't have to tell the rest of the story because that last number won't even matter. If you're a 4.4 guy, you're a 4.4 guy. We're just going to call you a 4.4 guy. But if you're running a 4.51 and you can get it down to a sub 4.540, okay, I get it. I understand what you're trying to do here. Knock yourself out. But if you're running a 4.55 or 4.56 repeatedly, that is a consistent time for you. You're not going to get it under a sub 4.540. So what are we talking about here? Show up at the combine, do everything, run, get it over with. But that's not what he wants to do. He's not going to run at the combine. I don't have a problem with it. It's just, I don't think you're going to blaze your pro day either. So what are we doing here? I mean, fast guys run fast. End of discussion. If you're not fast, we know who you are. We like you as a football player. We know you're not the fastest guy in the world. We can see that on tape. You're not changing anybody's mind here. The only way you could blow anybody out of the water with your performance is if you showed up and you were way faster than anybody predicted you would be. But if you show up and do exactly what we think you're going to do, no one's going to beat you up for it. So that's how I feel about Laquon Treadwell and him not running at the combine. Let's move on to another topic. Could Mackensie Alexander, the star cornerback from Clemson, slide in this year's draft? It's funny because you see these mock drafts and you hear all these predictions and you hear all of these things and you know what you see on tape and you hear other people talk and you say to yourself, okay, this guy's probably going to go anywhere from here to here. Then I heard something crazy. Could he hear his name come off the board in day 3 of the draft? We're talking Saturday, not Friday, not Thursday, but Saturday. Could he be a round 3 pick for someone? Are you crazy? Look, let me tell you something else a wise man once told me, okay? Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me. Some damn good advice, too. If I was you, I'd adhere to that as often as possible. Especially when it's draft season, okay? Draft season is full of smoke screens and deception and misleading. Don't believe what you hear, even if it's coming from Mel Kiper or Todd McShay or hell, even Mike Mayock. And you know, I think Mike Mayock's word is gold this time of the year. Hell, platinum coated even. Believe nothing you hear. Half of what you see. Even if it's spat by me. The draft and this process is full of liars who have hidden agendas, who are looking to deceive anybody in their path. So when you hear Mackensie Alexander could fall to yada, 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 don't believe the hype. And the word out on the street is everyone's scared away by no interceptions. Look, I don't like it either, okay? I can't tell you the last time a guy this highly touted at the cornerback position didn't at least have one INT to his name. As a matter of fact, I saw something somewhere where it said, in the last 5 years, a first-round cornerback with no interceptions happened exactly 0 times. So, guys usually come into the league having picked the football off at least one time. Mackensie Alexander hasn't. That being said, he's still a hell of an athlete. He's still a guy that a lot of teams... And don't talk to me about size, okay? Again, since when did 5'11" become a small corner? I still don't get that logic. Can someone please explain to me, since when did an inch shorter than 6 foot become a short corner? All of a sudden now, if you're 5'11", if that first number starts with a 5, oh my God, he's too small. When did that happen? So you're telling me the guy that's 6 feet, he's big, he's long, but the guy that's 5'11" isn't? Come on, man. Stop. Stop your nonsense, guys. Seriously, what are we doing here? That's why during this time of the year, you make sure you keep your feet on the ground and you stay planted. Believe what you want to believe. Don't believe what somebody else tells you, because they'll feed you a lot of nonsense, and if you eat it up, you'll be full off of straight garbage this time of the year. You're a damn fool if you think Mackensie Alexander isn't going in the first round. All it takes is one, people. All it takes is one. Only one team has to love Mackensie Alexander. There may be some teams that don't have him rated as a first-round cornerback because he didn't pick a pass off. But I'm telling you right now, of the 32 teams in the league and the 31 that have a first-round pick, I guarantee you there is one that says he's a first-round pick, and if we get a chance to pick him, we're going to take him. All he has to do is test out well. All he has to do is interview well. And if everything holds up and everything checks out, he'll be a first-round pick. Now, where and how that happens, don't ask me. I don't know. But if you think for 1 second Mackensie Alexander is not going in the first round, you're a damn fool. Let's move on to 7-on-7, man. I'm ready to run some drills. Let's get into the 7-on-7 drill. We're going to start with a couple of combine topics today, a couple of combine lists, if you will. The first of which is the top 7 guys that need to nail the interviews at the combine. You know, the combine isn't just on the field exploits. It's not just the underwear Olympics. You got to lift some weights. You got to talk to some GMs, some scouts, some personnel, some coaches. They want to flap their gums. They want to ask you some questions. You got to take some tests. You got to check out medically. We'll talk about that here in a second. But for some of these guys, these interviews are going to be way more important than anything that goes down on the field for them. So let's talk about the top 7 players in this year's upcoming draft that need to nail the interview process if they want to have any hopes of not just being a first or a second round pick, but getting drafted at all in some of these instances. Let's run down this list. Coming in at number 7, Laramie Tunsil. Now look, this guy could be the number 1 overall selection in the 2016 NFL Draft. The talent in this case is undeniable, all right? This guy has top-tier talent. He's a top 5 talent in this draft. Could come off the board as early as number 1 to the Titans. And no one would bat an eye. But he has to nail his interview. They're going to ask him questions. We know about the stepfather domestic dispute that he had. Look, if somebody laid hands on my mom, I would have been in the same exact situation as he was. Now, you got conflicting stories there. Stepdad says, hey, I was trying to warn him about not talking to agents. He got mad, got in my face. We got into it. He says, look, put his hands on my mom. I had to let him know what was really good. I don't know what really happened. Coaches are going to ask. He's going to tell his side of the story. We all know what resulted from that domestic dispute with his stepfather. A full-fledged NCAA investigation that uncovered some different things that got him suspended for 7 games. And so he's going to have to answer questions about that. We know about the impermissible benefits, all of the different things that he was accepting that he wasn't supposed to. And so, look, at the end of the day, I don't think NFL teams have a problem with his off-the-field behavior. It's more about let's make sure that you're a guy that is suitable to be the number 1 overall selection, to be the number 2, to be the number 5 pick in the draft, that's going to command all of this money. Can we trust you with this type of responsibility to come in, work hard, and be the guy that we need you to be, the rock at left tackle for us? He nails that part of the interview. He goes out and performs well on the field. This guy's going to be a top 5 pick, sure. Number 6. This is a guy that's very intriguing. We're not talking about him a lot at the quarterback position, and rightfully so. but we all know the physical gifts are here. They are undeniable. I'm talking about Cardale Jones, quarterback of the Ohio State University. Tumultuous year for him after winning a national championship, saving the day for L.A.B and crew at Ohio State. He comes back the following year, and it's up and down. He's got the starting job, but he's not playing the way that they expected him to. He ends up having to share the load with J.T. Barrett, who ultimately takes over and gets the job done for them. Where is he mentally? This is what the coaches, the scouts, the GMs are going to want to know, owners included. Where are you mentally? Are you a mature young man or what? Because we've seen all the immaturity from Cardale Jones on Twitter and some of the things he said to the media. He's a guy that you say to yourself, he just doesn't get it. And so they're going to want to know, where are you mentally? Can you digest an NFL playbook? Can I trust you to go up to the whiteboard and diagram a play for me and tell me exactly where you're supposed to go with the football? First read, second read, third read. Where is your mental state? Can I count on you? Can you be accountable as a young man? These are all questions they're going to have for Cardale Jones because the guy is a big athletic freak. Arm talent out of this world. Can run, physical, can do all the things you need to do from the quarterback position. But does he have it upstairs? They're going to want to know. And I think if he can nail that portion of the interview, come out and spin it at the combine, do all of the things at his pro day, he can get not only drafted by a team, but actually land on an NFL roster and have a legitimate shot to play somewhere down the road. But if he cannot nail this interview process and teams have questions, I can see this guy not only not getting drafted early, but not getting drafted at all. That's how big these interviews are going to be for Cardale Jones, not just at the combine, but over the next couple of months leading up to the draft. He's got some explaining to do, and he's got to make sure that he handles this situation correctly, or else he could be on the outside looking in when we're talking about players that were drafted in the 2016 NFL Draft. You look at number 5. We're talking about another quarterback here, but we're talking about a whole different set of circumstances surrounding his situation. We're talking about Michigan State's quarterback, Connor Cook. This is a guy coming in at number 5 on the top 7 guys that need to nail the interviews at the combine, that really needs to nail this interview. And the difference between him being a first-round pick or a second-round pick or possibly even a third-round pick is how he handles these interviews. And I'm not playing. I mean, he could easily be a top 15, top 20, top 25 pick in this draft. The guy's talented. You can say what you want about his leadership, him not being a captain. You can question all of those things. I don't have the answers to that, but I can tell you one thing. The guy's talented enough to go in the first round. You may not think so, but I'm telling you, the guy's talented enough to go in the first round. So what these GMs, scouts, owners, coaches are going to want to know is, why weren't you a captain at Michigan State? What's up with your leadership qualities? Why are we even having this conversation right now? Why didn't you accept that invitation to the Senior Bowl? Why didn't you come out and compete at the Senior Bowl? Show off your talents. Is that shoulder okay? There's a lot of things that Connor Cook is going to have to answer in that interview room with these different GMs, coaches, scouts, and owners. And again, if he comes off as arrogant, or he comes off as nonchalant, or he comes off as a guy that you can't trust to be a leader of men, he is not going to be a first-round pick. He's not going to be a second-round pick. He'll probably plummet to the third round. And we've seen guys fall off of the face of the earth because they didn't know how to handle themselves in the interview room. If he's looking to be a first-round pick, hell, a second-round pick, you better know what's good for him and start answering these questions like he has some sense. We'll see how he does, because his draft stock, to me, because the tape speaks for itself, he's got a bunch of it. His draft stock, to me, depends primarily on how he performs in the interview room, the combine, and all the way up until we get to the draft. So as we continue to make our way down the list of the top 7 guys who who need to nail the interviews at the combine. We find ourselves at number 4 with a little-known receiver in this draft class that may be as explosive and dynamic a playmaker as there is in this entire draft class at the wide receiver position. He's a guy that once verbally committed to Ohio State University before the off-the-field issues took effect and ended any hopes of playing major football on a big college football landscape. I'm talking about wide receiver Roger Lewis out of Bowling Green. Here's a kid, ultra talented. Go turn on the tape. You will be floored at what you will find and what numbers that this guy has put up over the last 2 seasons at Bowling Green. I single-handedly watched him destroy Maryland in a football game this year. I single-handedly watched him try to lift his team over Memphis in a football game. To hear the rest of this podcast and more, go to the website louietnetwork.com, or you can find this podcast and more on iTunes or Stitcher. That's louietnetwork.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.